In the last video, I made up this little example website. It's me teaching you HTML by making a website about me teaching you HTML, as meta as that is. And I realized I forgot to actually finish it up. I don't have the /body tag at the end. I'm not coloring it appropriately, but it looks, I have a lot of that same color right there, and also the /HTML tag. So now and only now that I slide this into place is this a complete web page. I didn't want to just let that one go. We have to, I showed you before about, lining everything up, and you have to have this one closed, and you have to have body closed. You have to open it, and you have to close it. And then both of our div tags are done, h2/h2, so on. So now it is structurally sound HTML, h1/h1. And now I can move on to the next example. I'll just slide down here. And I'll get my text box. We'll go HTML. Starting a brand new web page. HTML. Oops. And I also need body. We are again ignoring the title, or the heading in totally. So now we have HTML and body. That's good enough for now. And the span element, I'll show you what that means. Let's say we have a paragraph, P, and I'll need to label that. Okay, so we're starting just a paragraph. This is not a website that you would ever want to make, but all it is one paragraph. And we want to have some span elements in here. And let me pick, what's a good color for paragraphs? That one. So inside the paragraph, we have, this is a great lesson. That's the sentence that I want to put. But if I want to put emphasis on the word great, maybe to show my sarcasm, since that doesn't come through in text very well, I would put a small tag inside of the paragraph tag and inside of the line itself. So I'll put EM. EM stands for emphasis. It puts emphasis on the word great. And then we have to close that, of course, so /EM. I guess I should label these a different color, but I think they stand out well enough. And then I'll slide that into place. That is the content of our paragraph tag. And then to close it up, /P. And I'll slide that into place. And the way that the browser interprets this EM is actually something that you can define yourself with CSS, which I'll get to. I guess this is a good time. The HTML is the actual content of the web page. It's the words that need to show up. And if someone is blind and they have just a computer that reads the HTML to them in a computer voice, it will still read all the HTML straight through, and they'll be able to understand what's going on. The CSS it can be a separate document, or you can put it in here, and that's what tells how it's displayed visually. And it's considered good practice nowadays to really separate them. And so the most you would want to put as far as presentation is something with emphasis, this EM tag, because it actually means something. It actually is important. It's not just purely aesthetics and not just looking pretty. Because if the screen reader comes along and says, "This is a emphasis great lesson," then the blind person will still know what's going on, or visually impaired, if they just can't read that well, they might have it. So the emphasis tag is sort of presentational, but it also is about it's also affecting the meaning of what's going on. So that's about the most you would want to have here. Oh, I should tell you the difference between span and div. That's sort of the point of this lesson. This that I underline is a span tag, and the reason is because it fits inside of words. Let's see, how do I explain this? It just grabs this little section of a word. Like if this is your line, it grabs just a part of the line. It's inline. That's actually what it's called. Inline. So this EM is an inline element, and this div that we talked about up here is a block element. And it's block because it draws a rectangle. It draws a block, even if it's not actually on the screen. It can hold inside of it. Divs can hold images. It can hold paragraphs. Divs, I think, can hold pretty much any other type of tag. You can even have divs inside of divs if you choose to. And the span, on the other hand, that's not even a span. That's just an inline element. I'm sorry. Let's try another one. Let's go with span, since that's what I said I would talk about. So we have span, and then I'm going to show you a little bit of JavaScript or CSS readiness. So I'm going to have span ID, and the ID is the way that you reference this particular span. It's like giving it a name. Span is just the tag. You can have all kinds of spans, you can have all kinds of paragraphs on the same page, but this one has a particular ID that I'm going to put between quotation marks. So I'll put this one, all one word. So we have a span called this one, and then inside the span, actually, well, it's too late now. I already sent it. So we have span, this one, and then I'll write some words. These are inside. This on this website, I'm not even trying to make sense out of it. I'm just showing you how things work, how they're put together. So these words are inside the span, and then in accordance with what I've been saying this whole time, I have to close the span tag. Okay? And I will color it appropriately. So now we have a span tag. This is just an inline element tag. This is actually span. Okay, I'm sorry to be confusing. So this just puts emphasis, but this span could be used for a lot of different things. On the CSS page, you could put well, I don't want to get ahead of myself with what CSS does, but CSS, you can say, if there's a span that has the ID this one, then you should make this bright red. You know, I could change this ID. I could make that say red. I could say span ID red, and then on the CSS page say anything that has the ID red should be rendered as red on the browser. And then on the browser screen, which I haven't even drawn yet, on the browser screen, we would see, hopefully I can actually draw this, we would see this is a, and then it would be bold or something, great lesson. I don't actually have a bracket. Actually, I should, well, it's too late now. This is a great lesson. I'll do it. And then BR is for page break, and then you have to have the slash inside the same tag. That's the most accurate way of doing it. I think it'll work without the slash usually, but that's the correct way. So what that does, BR is just like a return key or enter key. It returns it to the next line. Because otherwise, if we didn't have that, we would have, that's a great lesson, and then these are great would be right there. But since we put the BR slash in, it returns it to this line, and then we say these are, oh, well, if I did the red thing, then they wouldn't be blue, they would be red. I should be consistent. Okay, so the span that is containing these words has the ID of red. We just said it does. I'm covering over this one because that's not as meaningful. And then on the CSS page, somewhere else, which I will explain how it works later, I said if there is an ID of red, if the tag span has an ID of red, then the word should be printed red. And that tells your web browser, it tells your Safari or Firefox or whatever you're using to write these letters in red ink. Ink is in quotations. Okay? Hopefully that was clear. I said a lot of things. I kind of threw break right in there, but if you want something to be returned to the next line, you write break. EM gives something emphasis. It might be emboldened or underlined, and you can define how that works on the CSS page. Apparently my next lesson should probably be CSS. And span is pretty much the same thing as div. It's a similar idea as far as just making an organization thing, except divs make blocks and spans can only hold words or things that fit on a line. And I think that's a good review. I will see you in the next lesson.